Dear students, good morning. Welcome to Law Excellence IAS. Let us start the discussion on today's newspaper, that is 11th September 2020. The first article for discussion is An Agriculture-Led Revival as Flawed Claim. Today, the government is stating that agriculture will lead economic revival. What is the share of agriculture in total GDP? It is close to 15%. Even if we expect 4% growth in agriculture, it bottoms down to 0.6% growth in GDP. Then how can agriculture revive the economy in India is a bigger question. Now let us verify this claim of the government. On what basis government is making this claim? India's food grain production increased and procurement in Rabi also is higher. Let us verify this. Normally the procurement 15 to 20% is done by the government agencies. Remaining 80% will be done by the private traders. Due to lockdown, private mandis got closed down. Our markets got closed down. Then the state governments took extra interest in procurement. That has increased the official procurement against the private procurement. And second point, food inflation is high. On what basis the food inflation is calculated in India? Consumer Protection Index. India's biggest problem is middlemen in agriculture. In such a case, higher food inflation is higher profits to traders, not to the farmers. Why the food inflation is increased? It is again due to supply chain disruption rather than increasing profits to the farmers. You can never claim increase in inflation is leading to increased profits to the farmers. The third thing is area under Kharif is higher by 14%. Remember, why the more agriculture or else agriculture is given so much of importance, there is reverse migration and lot of people are becoming re-dependent on agriculture. So that's why the number of mouths this sector also has to feed have increased. That's the reason why agriculture will revive the market economy is or else economic growth is a myth and it is falsely claimed. And second, what the government can do, it has to provide various safety nets to the farmers. PM Kisan is a good idea. But however, many of the agricultural laborers and also tenant farmers are not covered under that. And PM Kisan 6,000 rupees is paid for household as of now. It can be raised up to 12,000 rupees. Second, MSPs, what is government promising? 150% over the production cost. So this has to be seriously implemented. This 150 rupees over 150% of production cost. What is the production cost? The government has to take into consideration the comprehensive cost, not just the incurred cost. Government has to take comprehensive cost to arrive at the cost of production. The third, most of the schemes in support of the farmers are loan-based schemes. These loan-based schemes have to turn into subsidy-based schemes. The loan-based schemes may create a debt burden surrounding the farmer community. That is what author is trying to say. The next article, the great graying of China. Whenever I talk about Deng era in China, I was always praising him for his economic reforms of China. But today, I am talking about one policy of Deng era which can shatter the China, that is one-child policy. There are two major things have happened. One is the preference for boy has led to skewed sex ratio in China. And the second most important thing is by 2050, more than 32% of the Chinese population are expected to be old age population. Old age people are increasing. So in this scenario, obviously old age population increases the burden of the government and decreases the economic productivity. So the social safety nets, welfare costs of the government will increase, returns of the government will decrease. The second, total factor productivity of China is also expected to decrease in the coming years. In the last decade, it was at its peaks, but by 2040 onwards, total factor productivity is expected to come down. You know the old age population is one reason. There are other systemic factors. There are three factors we can consider over here. One is market reforms, second is governance, third is skills. These three are together will increase the total factor productivity. Market reforms during Deng era were seriously taken up, but it got slowed down during Xi Jinping era. Especially in the services sector, if you see, there are no reforms, banking, insurance, education, etc. Coming to governance, China's government is known for its secrecy, lack of accountability, and corruption is all-time high. And corruption perception index, etc., Chinese position is not very great. And skills. So China's manufacturing sectors might can be attributed to its skills, but the similar skills do not exist in the services sector. Added to that, rural-urban skill gap is very high. Almost 40% of the Chinese population today live in rural areas, and the school dropouts, high school dropouts, remarkably high in the rural areas compared to urban areas. It is almost 3:1 between rural and urban areas. In this case, the Chinese economic growth is expected to flatten in the next 2 decades. That is what author is trying to explain. The next is how much is too much when collecting data for planning. Prime Minister Modi on August 15th announced National Data Health Mission, NDHM, Health Data Mission, whatever it is. So in USA, a similar kind of program is called as Electronic Medical Records. It is in operation for more than 2 decades. What are the benefits the society got because of this? One, personal data can be put on a track. And second, healthcare decisions can become much wiser and effective. Third, we can study public health protocols, standards, etc. And census or demographic data collection becomes very easy. In this case, the quality of data and real-time collection of data have improved in USA, Germany, etc. Today in Germany, census data is not separately collected. It is automatically updated using these health records. And next is to protect this data. In USA, strong legal framework exists. Health Information Protection Act ensures long or strong safety net to privacy. In India, no such a law exists with regard to the protection of the privacy of Indian patients. Second most important thing, here the author recommends is anonymity and consent. If these two exist, then only this mission becomes successful and people can enjoy the trust on it. What are the two principles? Consent and anonymity. India also has to develop a robust regulatory framework to ensure this data management. So if there is no strong regulatory framework leveling, so some data has to available only at certain levels. At least 3 levels of data screening and data availability have to be created. Consent, anonymity, regulatory framework, and a robust institution for regulatory framework. All these are being suggested. Something rotten. Mr. Sushant Singh Rajput, he committed suicide. After that, media trial has begun on his girlfriend, Ms. Riya Chakravarti. Whatever the truth, the investigation agencies are expected to bring it out. And politics have entered into it in the death of Mr. Rajput. And today, Ms. Riya Chakravarti is a victim or is an accused, no one knows. But how she is being treated definitely makes her an accused. Who is the judge of judges, the supreme judge of this country? None other than the Joker Arnab Goswami. That's how I will put it as. So the media trial is the worst trial in India. Electronic media is not concerned about, or social media nonsense is not concerned about what is happening at border, what is happening with COVID-19, what is happening with unemployment, economic status in India. They are just worried about how Riya Chakravarti is wearing, what is the relationship of Miss Riya Chakravarti with that man. What all this nonsense is? These are all the deviated priorities of the nation. India's biggest joke is its media, independent, free, vociferous media. Jaishankar Wang Yi holds talks. A diplomatic way out has to be worked out for existing standoff between India and China. In this context, Russia, India, China trilateral, this dialogue is happening on sidelines of Shanghai Cooperation Organization. In this case, bilateral meeting happened between External Affairs Minister. We can see a way out through it. Officials confirmed 2 incidents of firing on left banks of Pangong Tso, the lake in Tibet and Ladakh regions, which spreads between these 2 regions. There was some incidents of firing. Indian Army reported that Chinese have fired into air, and as per the agreed bilateral norms, no guns have to be fired. Guns need to be silent and has to face downwards. Obviously, it is an violation of bilateral agreement. House can select deputy speaker. Instead of word select, it has to be elect. Deputy speaker is also an elected position. and it is not a nominated position. Normally, as per convention, deputy speaker will come from opposition, speaker comes from the governing ranks, the ruling ranks. In this case, deputy speaker is not an assistant to speaker. Deputy speaker is equally powerful as speaker when he sits in the chair. So, deputy speaker gets all the powers of the speaker when he is running the house. India-Japan sign logistics agreement. Why this agreement is important? Because of the existing situation at LAC. China and Japan also have border dispute, and India-Japan have very good relations and they are members of Quad. As per this logistics agreement, there can be cooperation between the armed forces in using the naval bases, etc.